Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. It's rare to find a Republican on Capitol Hill breaking with President Donald Trump on the issue of immigration. But one of them is Congressman Will Hurd, who represents a district that stretches along the U.S.-Mexico border from San Antonio to El Paso. He's in the state for a Republican fundraiser, and he is our guest this morning on Close Up. Congressman Hurd, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So you represent an area, as we noted, that's right along the border, and you can't get much farther from New Hampshire than that. So everyone has an opinion on this issue. What is it that people in the rest of the country don't understand about the border and immigration policy where you come from?
Sure, and let me give some context to my remarks. I have 820 miles of border. I'm the only Republican along the border. I spent 9.5 years as an undercover officer in the CIA, where I was collecting intelligence on threats to our homeland. I was chasing Russian intelligence officers, stopping terrorists from infiltrating our country, chasing nuclear weapons proliferators. So I have an experience in dealing with this. What most people don't realize is that every single mile of the border is very different from every other one. You have 2,000 miles of border. We have about 654 miles that have current physical barrier wall, fence, or whatever you want to call it. And most people think that we are using the latest and greatest technology along the border, and we're not. A lot of the technology is 20 years old. What's happening at the border right now, though, is indeed a crisis. In the month of March, we had 103,000 people come into this country illegally. To put some context to that number, all of last year, there was 400,000 people came in the country illegally. We don't have the numbers for April yet, but it's likely to be super high. So Border Patrol is overworked, Customs is overworked, ICE is overworked. This is a real challenge. But the root cause is violence and lack of economic opportunities in the Northern Triangle. That's El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. We need to be working to address those root causes. And this is not just a problem in the United States of America. It's not just a problem in Mexico. It's a problem for the entire Western Hemisphere, and we should be working together on that. It's 2019. We should have gotten operational control of our border, meaning we should know what's coming back and forth across our border. The reason we haven't done that is our strategy is we focus on one part of the border at different times. We have to look at all 2,000 miles of border at the same time. The best way to do that is with technology. The best way to also do that is increasing the manpower. We need more agents within Border Patrol. There are 2,000 positions that are right now have the money, have the resources, but we haven't been able to fill those. So we have to make sure we have those resources. So this is a difficult problem, and there's a lot of ways to go at it. But we need to be thinking about the strategy on how to gain operational control.
Why not build a wall?
And a wall makes sense in certain places, right? Where there's urban to urban contact, that makes sense. But in other areas where Border Patrol's response to a threat is measured in hours or days, a wall is actually not a physical barrier. So we need to be able to make sure that we have the technology that can assess a threat, track that threat until we're able to deploy our most important resource, the men and women in Border Patrol. It's called defense in depth. That's how we're going to make sure that we can gain control of our border in order to make sure we keep Americans safe.
Loyalty is such an important part of the puzzle for Republicans these days, especially in Washington. What price have you paid as a Republican, even in your own district, do you believe, for not supporting the president on this issue?
Well, look, even the president said that building a wall from sea to shining sea is not what he's trying to do, right? And that is something that I've been talking about since 2009, since I first ran. So my goal is real simple. Be honest, treat people with respect, agree when I agree, disagree when I disagree, and actually put forward positions that are going to solve the problem. I see this every single weekend when I'm back in the district. This is something that I've spent almost my entire adult life trying to do, and that's protect this country. And that's something I want to use my skill set and background in order to do that.
Speaking of disagreements, big one right now between the executive branch and the legislative branch. Should the Attorney General be compelled to testify before Congress?
Well, I think the next step now is let's have Bob Mueller come testify. That's the question. We're focusing on a guy who interpreted a report written by another guy. So let's have the guy that wrote that report come down and talk about what his concerns were, right? And the other issue we are missing in all this, everybody should be thankful No American worked with the Russians in our elections in 2016. That's ultimately a good thing, and something that there is bipartisan agreement on, that the Russians tried to influence our elections. What are we doing to counter that? They tried and manipulate our elections in 18 as well. We've seen them do this against our allies in places like Moldova and Ukraine and Montenegro, and they're using disinformation, right, in order to try to influence our elections. We need to develop a counter disinformation strategy in order to thwart the Russians, and this is where some of our conversations should be going on, especially as we are going into a hotly contested 2020 election.
You mentioned you served in the CIA. So how would you rate the information security and cyber defenses of government agencies outside the national defense and national security area?
It depends. There's actually a scorecard on this. It's called FITARA, and this was something when I was a chairman of a subcommittee we looked at. Ultimately, what we need to be doing is making sure we're following best practices within the federal government. And a topic I spend a lot of time on is IT procurement. Trust me, it's not a sexy topic. Nobody's ever held a parade for IT procurement. But guess what? The federal government spends $90 billion a year on purchasing IT goods and services. That's with a B. And 80% of that is on old, outdated systems. And just think about all the government agencies that have our information. And what's outrageous is that many of the hacks that we've seen happen in the federal government, it could have been defended against. There was a vulnerability in software that the world already knew about, and it wasn't patched, it wasn't fixed. That is just unacceptable in my opinion. We need to be making sure we're following these basic things to keep people's information protected, and we should also be making sure we're streamlining our systems so that we can provide better digital-facing services to the American people.
You mentioned the Russian interference. So there's obviously this information security issue. Looking ahead well into the future, with your perspective, how do we maintain our freedoms that we have in this country while living increasingly online lives?
Look, we're increasingly connected. Ultimately, that's a good thing, right? One of the areas that I am most concerned with, while we talk a lot about Russia when it comes to cybersecurity, we also need to be talking about China when it comes to technologies like 5G. Why does 5G matter? Anybody, I'm sure many of your viewers have tried to download a super high-def video onto their phone. It often takes a long time. With 5G, it's going to be able to do it in under a second. And so what is that going to allow us? It's going to actually allow us to develop smart cities. It's actually going to allow us to develop, truly autonomous vehicles. And guess what? The Chinese know this, and they're trying to become the world's leader in 5G because they want Chinese companies to be the ones that own what's called the application layer, those companies that are going to take advantage of that technology. So imagine this. Imagine it's Chinese companies that have all of our information. And let me tell you, the Chinese are not developing facial recognition technology to make it easier to buy groceries in a grocery store. They're using it in order to continue to persecute their own people. And that's why this is truly a race. And we got to make sure our kids and our grandkids are ready for this future, understand coding, are ready for artificial intelligence. This is going to have it's an existential crisis for our economy. These are things that we should be focusing on, and I love being able to use my degree in computer science and my time as an undercover officer in the CIA in order to address these issues.
Quickly before we wrap up, two of your fellow Texans are running for president in the other party in the Democratic primary, Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro. You probably know both of these guys.
I do.
Who do you think is going to make a better commander-in-chief if they won?
They have a long way to go to figure out if they can get to that point, right? And the good folks here in New Hampshire are going to have a role to play in doing that.
All right. Congressman Hurd, maybe we'll see you back here in the future, too.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time.